Hi everyone, it's Ash here. I'm the vegan neuropsychologist, and today I'm here to talk about how to cope when this non-vegan world is stressing you out. I don't know about you, but I get pretty overwhelmed sometimes, and I thought it might be good just to share a few tips on how to cope in different situations that can get us feeling overwhelmed. So if we haven't met before, my name's Ash. I'm a neuropsychologist, which means I'm kind of obsessed with the brain, how it works, why we do what we do, and I think most importantly, how we can rewire our brains so that we can have health and happiness and live a meaningful life. I'm here as a passionate vegan activist, but also as an activist for the activists. So I think we all have a message to share, and I'm especially humbled and so admiring of vegans because we are in the minority, and to be a vegan activist in this day and age requires a lot of inner strength. And so I'm here to provide support when sometimes the world gets us down. So if you're watching the replay, welcome. If you're joining me live, thank you so much for being here. Now I want to say, if you are watching the replay, feel free to post your questions and comments below because I always do check them afterwards. And if you're watching live, then please feel free to join in the conversation. So all that introduction done, I want to talk about how to cope when this non-vegan world is stressing you out. And there's lots of reasons why we can get overwhelmed, and I'm just for the sake of simplicity, I just want to focus on two main reasons that we can feel really overwhelmed. So the first is feeling overwhelmed with our feelings, because there's a lot of bad stuff that happens, and I think we're in such a we have so much information overload these days. We hear about everything that happens everywhere. It used to be that we just heard our local news, and now we're hearing about news all over the world, and sometimes it feels really close to home, even though it's happening, an entire hemisphere away. So with all of this news, it's like this concentration of news, and it can be bad news or good news. And the problem is, our brain likes the bad news. We tend to focus on the bad news, so it can feel like the world is getting worse, and it can feel like there's just this overwhelming amount of suffering in the world. And that can be overwhelming, and it's a lot for our brain to deal with. There are all these mixed feelings going on, like there's despair and there's distress, and then maybe there's disillusionment and cynicism with the world, and we start to wonder, is anything ever going to change? So there's that aspect of feeling overwhelmed. And then the other aspect of feeling overwhelmed is when we just want to do all the vegan activist things. Like, there's a picnic on the weekend that we want to go to, and then there's a direct action event next week that we want to go to, and then we want to go visit an animal sanctuary, and we want to make a donation, and we want to take some food to the animals, and what else? We got to go visit our family, and Domino's has just put out this vegan line of pizzas, so we got to get to Domino's. Plus we want to have a job and earn some money and sleep and those kinds of things. So how are we supposed to get all of those things done? And it can be really overwhelming to think about everything that needs doing, and especially when we're thinking about it all at once. So I'm going to share something with you. Hey Jay Sherry, good to see you here, and welcome to everybody who is joining me live. So I want you to think about your brain as a computer, which is probably how a lot of us think about it. So as a computer, we have infinite storage capacity, right? Everything that we've ever learned is stored somewhere in our brain. We might not feel that way sometimes because, sometimes it can be hard to access the information that's there, but theoretically our brain has infinite storage capacity. But what can we work with at any one time? What can we actually see on the screen? You can only have so many windows open and actually get anything done. I don't know about you, but I'm one of these people that when I'm working on something, I have like 25 windows open. It drives my husband nuts. And I've got, like a Word document here, and then I've got maybe an image here, and I'm working off a PowerPoint thing or an Excel thing up here. And pretty soon, if you've got enough windows open, you actually can't do anything. And that's what overwhelm is like, because what we can work with on the screen at any one time, that is limited. It's finite. And if we try and cram too many things in there, too many things that we're working on at once or we're thinking about at once, it just becomes too much. And eventually we just kind of throw up our hands, or our brain throws up its hands and just says, I can't deal with this right now. And that's where the feeling of getting overwhelmed comes from. So even though our brain has infinite storage, we can't work with everything all at once. And that's where overwhelm comes from. And the danger with overwhelm is that it just feels uncomfortable. And these days it's really easy to distract ourselves. I mean, if we're feeling overwhelmed, we can just step back and go turn the TV on, or go check our email, or go have something to eat. But then when we come back to it, we're still feeling overwhelmed. So then we might go and distract ourselves from it again. So it can lead to sort of this cycle of inaction or inactivity and procrastination as well. So it's not a great place to be. And as vegans or vegan activists, you probably have an important message to share with the world. And the last thing that you want to do is to be feeling really overwhelmed. So given that overwhelm can come from many different places, it all fundamentally boils down to a system overload. So how do you cope when the system is getting overloaded? So I'm going to share with you 3 tips on how you can do that. Now the first two are probably pretty conventional, and maybe the third one not quite so much. So the first one, it seems obvious. If you've got too many windows open on your screen at once, you've got to start closing some of the windows, which means you've got to start reducing the number of things that's on your mind at any one time. Now, this is easier said than done, I know, because, we're juggling many things, maybe a job, a family, our companion animals, our activism. We've got to get on Facebook and do things there. So instead of holding all of our to-do list in our head, we just got to put it down on paper. And it's not just writing it down and looking at it there, it's actually writing it down and just tucking it away for the moment until the overwhelm starts to subside. We need to start focusing on the one thing or the couple of things that we're going to do in the short term, rather than thinking about everything that we need to do over the next week, month, year. If you were to look at all the food that you're going to eat in a year, that's a lot of food, and you would look at it and go, holy shit. But it doesn't seem so bad. It doesn't seem so overwhelming when you're looking at that food just at one meal at a time, right? One snack at a time. So it's kind of like with our activities. Overwhelm is a classic symptom that you're just thinking about too much all at once. You just got to take a step back. Humans are pretty cool because we've got these frontal lobes. We've got the capacity to think about our thinking. So let overwhelm be a signal that the system is getting overloaded. You're trying to do too much at once. You're trying to think of too much at once. You've got to close some of the windows. So get those ideas out of your head and put them down onto paper. For some people who are prone to anxiety, such as myself, I'll talk about that maybe another time, it's actually helpful just to have a space. It's a worry space. So all the things that you need to worry about, you just write them down. And you set aside a time in your calendar when you're going to worry about the things that you want to worry about. So this kind of clears up the space in your brain. The valuable real estate of your mind is not getting overly occupied with these worries. You're just setting them aside. You're going to come back to them, and it gives you the mental freedom to be able to focus on what you need to be focusing on. So that brings me to the second tip, which is really focusing on the short term. Now for you, it might be focusing on what you're going to do today. It might be focusing on what you're going to do in the next hour, maybe just in the next 5 minutes. It kind of depends on you. Sometimes we just get so overwhelmed that anything more than a couple of minutes is too daunting. So we just need to think about, what do I need to do right now? And it could be as simple as just going and having a drink of water, taking a couple of deep breaths, and that's it. That's all you're going to think about for the moment. So when we declutter our mind a little bit, it gives us the breathing room to then be able to focus on what we really need to do. And sometimes just taking those tiny steps forward, so we do the next 5-minute increment. We focus on something for the next 5 minutes, we get through that. Then it's the next 5 minutes and we get through that. And when we've done that a couple of times, it actually builds up momentum. We start to feel calmer because we're making steps, we're moving forward, and that can actually get the ball rolling for us, and it means that we're less likely to get overwhelmed in the future. So those were my first 2 tips. So writing down the things that are on your mind to worry about later, and also focusing just on the short term, just on the next few minutes or the next hour. And the third one, now this one's a kind of a big one, I guess, in personal development, self-help. Everyone always talks about just let it go, just let the feelings go. And I've always, like, what the hell does that mean? You know, let it go. It's like, oh, I got a thread, whoop, just let it go. You know, your feelings don't work like that. I think there's a bit of a misconception there, because as time's gone on and I've thought about it a little bit more, and what I've realized is that we're not trying to let go of that overwhelming feeling. What we're trying to do is let go of struggling with it. Because I think when we feel overwhelmed, we start to feel guilty or maybe shameful. We start to feel like we're bad people, we're bad vegans, we're bad activists. We start to think that other people don't feel like that, what's wrong with me? And we can get into this whole cycle of self-judgment and maybe self-criticism, which, by the way, takes up valuable real estate in your brain. So that's just a couple more windows that you've got open where you're judging and criticizing yourself. So I think letting go doesn't mean letting go of the feeling, because you can't just let go of a feeling, but you can let go of the struggle with it, the grappling with it. And it's, again, I guess it's about being present to the feeling and just being like, you know what? I feel crap right now. I feel so stressed out. There's too much to do. Why isn't the world vegan yet? Hey, Anita, why isn't the world vegan yet? And this sucks. I feel like shit. This is a shitty situation. And sometimes we just need to be okay with being in that space. It doesn't mean we want to, you know, pitch a tent and live there forever. It just means that for right now, we just got to let go of the judgment and just say, yep, this sucks. I got too much to do. I don't know what to do. I just feel like drinking a bottle of wine right now or eating an entire tub of ice cream right now. And I think it's okay to have those moments. You get through them, because the wave of emotion, it rises and subsides. It always does. We never experience emotion to an extreme intensity all the time. Our body just can't do it. So it's about letting go of the judgment and allowing the emotion to kind of wash over us, to ride the wave of the emotion. And then once the emotion has subsided, we're actually clear-headed enough to then take some of those next steps, which is, okay, just focusing on what can I do in the next 5 minutes? How can I clear the space a little bit and make life a little less overwhelming? So I'm going to actually wrap this up. For those of you watching, if you've got any questions or comments, I would love to hear them. One thing I do want to say is that all overwhelm really comes from just trying to do too much at once. So no matter where your overwhelm's coming from, the stress that the overwhelm is coming from, just know that you just need to clear some of the windows of your mind, clear the screen a little bit, and it will help. It will help reduce that. And also letting go of the self-judgment and self-criticism is absolutely imperative. So there's one other topic. I was going to talk about it here, but this is getting kind of long already, so I might save it for another time. Let me know if you want to hear about it. It's this whole idea that we need to sort of push ourselves into the ground because the animals are suffering. I don't know about you. It happens to me. Sometimes I think to myself, gosh, you know, self-care, like, why should I bother with self-care? The animals need me. I got to go. Stay up late, sacrifice sleep. If I eat shit food, who cares? It's cheapest just to fill my belly so I can get back to the important mission. Thank you, Tyler. I'm so glad you found it helpful. Thank you for being here. And this whole, it's kind of like a sense of martyrdom in a way. It's all sort of like self-sacrifice. You know, like people like Joan of Arc, for example, you know, she sacrificed her life for her cause. And I almost feel like we live in a world that that values self-sacrifice. So sometimes we can get a little bit braggy about, oh, you know, I only got 3 hours of sleep last night. I only sleep five hours a night because I've got so much to do and I'm so busy. So we live in a world that kind of glorifies self-sacrifice. So I'm certainly not saying that this is unique to the vegan community at all. All I'm saying is sometimes I find myself falling into that trap. I'm a mum, so definitely as a mum, I can fall into that trap thinking that I need to be everything for everyone else, and if my needs get met, then hey, that's a bonus, but it's not essential. So I know I've kind of already gone on a bit of a jag about that, but let me know if you would find that topic useful, and I'll cover it next week, and if not, I'll cover something else. So there's that whole self-sacrifice martyr syndrome, which I actually cover in my book. My book is coming out soon. It's called Staying Positive in a Fucked Up World. I will leave a link below in the comments. If you find it helpful, Jay Sherry, I will definitely cover it for you then next week. So my book's called Staying Positive in a Fucked Up World. I actually do have a section where I talk about the martyr syndrome, which I resonate with this so much. You know, as I was writing that section of the book, I was talking to my husband and he's like, that's you. And I could write that section from total experience because I know what it feels like. And I have a feeling that if you're a vegan activist, you probably know a little bit of that feeling as well. So my book is called Staying Positive in a Fucked Up World. I am going to be putting out some excerpts from the book, probably starting this week or next. So I'll put the link below where you can sign up to receive the news and updates and some of those sneak peek, snippets from the book, which hopefully you will find helpful. So thank you so much for being here, for everybody for participating and joining in. If you've got topics that you'd like me to cover, then let me know. I do check all of the comments. I can see a couple of new people have jumped on. I'm actually about to wrap this up, but I will be uploading the replay of this onto Facebook, so you can check it out there. And please feel free to share. Thank you, Jenny. Thank you for being here. Please feel free to share if you find this useful, or tag anybody you think would benefit from hearing some of this information. I do think we all have an important message to share with the world, and it's important we do it sustainably, because we want a vegan world. We don't know how long it's going to take. Hopefully it'll be this year, but if not, we need to be here for the long haul. Because I know, and you probably do too, you probably feel this way too, that we want to be here when the world goes vegan, because it's just going to be a worldwide party, I think. All right, thank you so much for joining me, and have a fantastic Wednesday wherever you are in the world, and I will see you next time. Bye.